like he means it, pays the bill without blinking. He's the one people call when no one else picks up. But what no one sees is the way he sits in his car, 10 extra minutes after parking, not because he's tired, but because it's the only place he doesn't have to be strong. No one sees the messages he types, then deletes, the pain he swallows, the silence he rehearses. He keeps saying, "I'm fine." End of 4. Because deep down, he's not sure anyone would know what to do with the truth. He never asked to be the strong one, but somewhere along the way, that's who he became. He didn't choose to be the strong one. He never raised his hand and said, "Make me the rock, make me the one no one worries about." It just happened, a little at a time. The first time his mother cried and he held it together, even though he was just a boy. The first time he stayed calm while others panicked. The first time someone leaned on him and he didn't flinch. And like that, the pattern formed. People relied on him, and he delivered. Quietly, consistently, even when it hurt. Held his wife when she broke down, tucked his own fear into the back of his throat, because she needed stability more than honesty. Stayed composed at his parents' funerals, because someone had to organize things. Someone had to be strong for the family. And when his adult kids, now grown, now distant, said with irritation, "You were never really emotional, Dad," he bit his tongue. Not because it wasn't true, but because they had no idea how many nights he had felt too much, but said nothing, because emotion was never a safe option. He grew up in a world where crying made you weak, where expressing pain got you mocked, where silence was the badge of maturity, and endurance was the measure of love. So he endured. He provided. He absorbed every storm and smiled through it. But here's the part no one talks about. Strength, without relief, becomes a slow death. Support, when never reciprocated, becomes self-neglect. Somewhere along the way, being dependable turned into being invisible. Being strong turned into being silent. He became the man everyone leaned on, but no one checked in with. The man people vented to, but never asked, "What about you?" Because when you carry others well, people forget you're carrying anything at all. They assume you're okay, because you don't fall apart in public, because you still show up, still smile, still pay the bill, still mow the lawn, still function, but they don't see the truth. That underneath that function is a man who's learned to ignore himself, just to keep others feeling safe. And the question that echoes, late at night, in the car, after everyone's gone, isn't, "Why me?" It's simply, who carries him? And too often, the answer is, no one. His pain doesn't scream. It puts on a suit, smiles, and keeps going. He doesn't scream. He doesn't slam doors. He doesn't curl up in bed for days. That's not how his pain works. His pain wears a suit. It shows up on time. It finishes the report. It answers emails with, "Hope all is well." It mows the lawn, takes the trash out, smiles at the neighbor walking her dog. It shakes hands at church, stands tall at weddings, keeps small talk polite even when his heart is nowhere in the room. He knows how to function, even when he's empty. And maybe that's the scariest part. Because when you're good at functioning, people stop checking if you're actually living. He laughs at jokes that don't feel funny anymore. He says, "I'm good," so effortlessly that even he starts to believe it, until the evening comes, and the noise fades, and all that's left is the hum of a quiet house and the weight of things he never processed, like the job he gave 30 years to, only to be let go like a line item on a spreadsheet, or the birthday no one remembered last year. Not even a call, not even a text, or the nights he climbs into a bed that once held warmth, breath, shared stories, and now only holds silence and a pillow that hasn't been moved in weeks. He doesn't break visibly. He breaks in places no one looks. The corner of his smile when no one's watching. The pause between sentences when he zones out. The way he drives a little slower some mornings, just to avoid arriving too fast to a day that feels like a copy of yesterday. He doesn't have the luxury of falling apart, because if he breaks, everything breaks. So he stays intact. Outwardly, he keeps moving, keeps showing up, keeps giving what's left of himself. Because in his world, pain isn't something you talk about. It's something you carry quietly, with dignity, with grace, with a shirt tucked in, shoes polished, and a voice that doesn't shake even when the soul underneath it does. But every man like him eventually reaches a point where the silence becomes heavier than the pain itself. And that's when the real question shows up. What happens when a man who never learned to cry finally feels the ache that words can't carry anymore? Not all wounds bleed. Some just get buried beneath a quiet life. Not all wounds bleed. Some don't even bruise. Some just accumulate, layer by layer, year by year, like dust in a room no one cleans, until one day you can't breathe anymore. It's the way no one asks him, "Are you okay?" Because he's the strong one, the dependable one, the one who never complains. He's the emotional landfill for everyone else. They dump their fears, their worries, their chaos, and then walk away lighter. While he walks away heavier, everyone vents to him, but no one circles back and asks, "What about you? Do you ever need someone?" And when he's visibly quiet, when he pulls back just a little, they say, "He's fine. He likes to be alone." They mistake solitude for peace, but they don't realize quiet can feel like prison, when no one ever knocks on your door, not physically, not emotionally, not even out of curiosity. They say, "You're lucky. You've got your health, a roof, a retirement plan." And yes, those things are blessings, but blessings don't cancel out loneliness. A quiet house may be safe, but safety without connection feels like slow suffocation. He doesn't need applause, doesn't need parades. He's not chasing validation. He just wants to be seen, to be looked at, not as a function, not as a provider, not as the man who always has it together, but as a human being, a man who still feels, still acts, still hopes, still longs for something he can't always name. There are things he's carried for decades that have never passed through his lips. Disappointments, betrayals, regrets that show up at 3 a.m. and whisper, "You should have said something back then." But he didn't. Because when you're the strong one, you learn to suffer in silence, so others don't have to feel uncomfortable. And over time, that silence hardens into armor. And the armor becomes the reason no one sees you bleeding underneath. He's not angry. He's not bitter. He's just tired of being the invisible glue that holds everything together, while no one ever asks, "What's holding you?" Because even the strongest men need somewhere to finally fall apart. He used to try and talk, until the world taught him silence was safer. He wasn't always silent. There was a time he tried to speak, quietly, carefully, testing the waters one vulnerable sentence at a time. He said things like, "I don't feel like myself lately. It's been hard, you know. I'm just tired." But what came back? Wasn't space. Wasn't safety. Wasn't curiosity. It was discomfort, deflection, dismissal. "Come on, man. You've got a roof over your head. Help. At least you're still healthy. Other people have it worse." Or worse? The silence. That awkward shift in energy. The look in their eyes that said, "I don't know what to do with this." And so, he stopped. Not out of weakness, but out of self-preservation. Because every time he opened up, the world reminded him that his pain made people uncomfortable. So he learned to package it, shrink it, bury it beneath work, service, routine, and that default phrase, "I'm fine." Oh? Even when he wasn't. He became fluent in emotional invisibility, smiling just enough, listening just enough, performing normal just enough, so no one would look closer. Because the truth is, when a man speaks and isn't heard, he doesn't get louder, he gets quieter. And that silence? It's not peace, it's surrender. He stopped trying to explain himself, because no one really wanted the truth. They just wanted him to be okay, so they could feel okay around him. So the pain went inward, turned into detachment. He stopped caring about the things he used to love. Music, fixing things, taking walks, laughing. The color faded from his day, and no one noticed, because he still showed up, still did the dishes, still paid the bills, still texted, "Happy birthday" on time. And that's what hurts most. Not that he's suffering, but that he's suffering unnoticed. He's not asking for therapy, not asking for a rescue. He just wishes, once in a while, someone would sit down, look him in the eyes, and ask, What's really going on? Not to fix him, not to rush him, just to hold space. The way he's done for others his entire life. Because when a man stops talking, it's rarely because he has nothing to say. It's usually because no one ever stayed long enough to listen. Sometimes, what wakes a man up isn't tragedy. It's hearing his own pain in someone else's voice. It didn't happen in a crisis. There was no breaking point, no shouting, no collapse. It happened quietly. On a Tuesday, at a dinner, he sat alone in his usual booth. 2 eggs, black coffee, back to the window. He liked that table not because the food was good, but because no one expected him to talk, until he overheard them. 2 older men, late 60s, maybe 70, sitting in the booth behind him. They weren't loud, but the words cut through the air like they'd been waiting to be heard. I stopped talking. One of them said, because I realized no one was really listening. The other man nodded, didn't interrupt, just let the silence hang there like a shared truth neither of them needed to explain. And for some reason, that one sentence hit harder than any book, any sermon, any therapy session ever had. He froze, because it was his sentence. His life, his truth said out loud by a stranger. I stopped talking, not out of pride, not out of strength, but out of exhaustion. And in that moment, he didn't feel crazy, or broken, or weak. He felt seen by 2 men who didn't know him, but who carried the same invisible weight. And suddenly, it clicked. He wasn't alone. He wasn't the only one who had smiled through pain, who had made himself small to keep the peace, who had swallowed words that felt too heavy to release. He realized, maybe the pain isn't a flaw. Maybe it's a signal, a quiet invitation, not to explode, not to retreat, but to connect, not with the whole world, not with everyone on social media, but with one person, one friend, one moment of honesty that doesn't need to be pretty, just real. That's what those 2 men had found. Not a solution, not a fix, just a shared silence that finally felt like home. He didn't speak to them, didn't interrupt, but when he stood up to leave, he looked back at their table and nodded, not at them, but at the truth they had given him permission to accept. And for the first time in a long, long time, he let himself whisper, just under his breath, maybe it's okay to not be okay. And with that, a new door creaked open inside him. Not wide, not loud, but enough to breathe, enough to try, enough to speak again. Real strength isn't staying silent. It's learning to speak even if your voice shakes. He didn't change overnight. There was no dramatic breakthrough, no emotional outburst, no sudden flood of tears, just a quiet shift, a new kind of strength, the kind that doesn't roar, but exhales. One night, he sat across from an old friend, someone he hadn't opened up to in years, not out of distance, but out of habit, and for the first time, he said it out loud, I've been carrying too much for too long, and I think I forgot how to be a man who also hurts. His friend didn't flinch, didn't rush to fix it. He just nodded and replied, me too. And in that moment, something powerful happened. Not because they solved anything, not because the pain disappeared, but because the silence cracked open and didn't swallow him. He realized, maybe real strength isn't about hiding pain. Maybe it's about honoring it. Without shame, without apology. He had spent most of his life believing that to be strong meant to be silent, to be the one who never asks, never leans, never reveals. But now, he saw strength differently. Strength is the man who holds space and allows himself to be held. Strength is the man who listens and learns to say, I need someone to listen to me. It's the man who still shows up for others, but no longer abandons himself in the process. The kind of strength that says, I'm not okay, and that's not weakness. That's honesty. And when that kind of strength shows up, it doesn't scare people away. It draws the right ones closer. His conversations changed. His friendships deepened. He started asking better questions. Not just, what do you need? But also, what do I feel? He didn't become soft. He became real. Not a performance. Not a persona. Just a man. With a steady voice, a tired heart, and the courage to be both strong and human at the same time. Because in the end, the most powerful sentence a man can say, after a lifetime of being the silent one, isn't, "I'm fine." It's, "I'm still here. I'm still learning. And I no longer carry this alone." That is the new kind of strength. And for the man who's been holding it all in for far too long, that strength might just save his life. If you're a man over Hannah Kant, and you feel like no one sees the weight you carry, you're not weak. You're not too sensitive. You're not alone. You're just strong in a way the world hasn't learned to honor yet. But you can start honoring it by telling one truth, by making one space safe for yourself. Because every man deserves to be more than what he holds up for others. You deserve to be held, too.